All right. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. I'd like to call the Public Works Committee meeting of November 26, 2025 to order. Grimsby is situated on treaty land. This land is steeped in the rich history of the First Nations, such as the Haudenosaunee, the Haudenosaunee, and the Anishinaabe, including the Mississaugas of the Credit First Nation. There are many First Nations, Métis, and Inuit people from across Turtle Island that live and work in Niagara today. Grimsby stands with all Indigenous people, past and present, in promoting the wise stewardship of the lands on which we live. Our first item is disclosures of interest. Are there any disclosures of pecuniary or non-pecuniary interest? Seeing none. Can I get a mover and seconder to approve the agenda? Moved by Councillor Howe, seconded by Councillor Davoli. Resolved that the agenda for the November 26, 2025 Public Works Committee meeting be approved. All in favor? That's carried. Can I get a mover and seconder to receive the previous minutes? Moved by Member Smink, seconded by Councillor Kristangi. Resolved that the minutes of the October 29th, 2025 Public Works Committee meeting be received. All in favor? That's carried. All right, we have a delegation tonight. Our next item on the agenda is a delegation from David Belisle, representing the residents of Kidd Avenue regarding a school safety zone and traffic calming on Kidd Avenue. David, it's nice to meet you in real life. If you want to come up to the podium, there's a little button to turn the microphone on. Welcome to the Public Works Committee meeting.
Good evening. Thanks very much for having us. I'd like to start by saying that I'm here representing the residents of Kidd Avenue, and we all love Grimsby and can't imagine living anywhere else. So thanks very much for making it the place it is today. I'm here tonight to talk to you about a request for a school safety zone and traffic calming on Kidd Avenue. We're quite concerned about aggressive driving that we observe regularly on our small street. If we could go to the next slide, please. So basically, the residents of Kidd Avenue are expressing our deep concern about ongoing aggressive driving and excessive speeds on our street, which ends at Central Public School, which has roughly 600 students from grades 1 to 8. I think the enrollment this year was 580 some odd. Our street is very short, approximately 160 meters long, with 12 homes and many young families. Half the houses on our street have 2 children under 12. So there's a fair bit of activity between the school and the young residents of the street. Next slide, please. Here's just a little clip from Google Earth or satellite, Google Maps satellite photo. And I wanted to highlight the short length of the street. Currently, there's a 50-kilometer-an-hour speed limit, and we're right near the big plaza there. And I think that some people, this is sort of conjectural, but I think some people might come out of the parking lot after driving a little bit aggressively, steering a fair bit and things like that. There's the stoplight there, and then sort of continue without really realizing what they're doing, but they do accumulate a pretty good rate of speed, and it's caused a lot of concern on our street. Our street is very short, and practically if you tried to drive it yourself, it's even hard to get up to 50 kilometers an hour before it's time to slow down if you drive at a comfortable pace. So that's just a little bit of context. If you could go to the next slide, please. So we would like to respectfully request that the town of Grimsby consider a comprehensive school safety zone program on our street in alignment with the Vision Zero principles and current Ontario best practices, including a reduced speed limit of 30 kilometers an hour within the school zone, physical traffic calming features like cushion-type speed humps to ensure compliance, high visibility signage to make it more obvious to people that are transiting, and community safety zone designation to double fines and allow future automated speed enforcement or whatever else might come with that sort of thing, depending on how things proceed in the future more globally. Lowering the speed limit from 50 kilometers an hour to 30 kilometers an hour would have minimal impact, as most transit at a nice, comfortable, slow speed. As I mentioned, it's hard to get up much faster than 40 kilometers an hour. but a major safety benefit in reducing the risk of severe or fatal injury from greater than 80% to less than 10%. These are some figures from the reference there, the Ontario Traffic Council, Vision Zero guides. I'd like to mention briefly the physical traffic calming features. We've had some discussion with others in the past. Some of us have lived on the street for more than 10 years now. And they've mentioned that speed bumps aren't appropriate because it makes it more difficult for first emergency services to respond, that they'd have to slow down. There's a cushion type speed hump where it's actually sort of segments of a bump, so larger vehicles can actually straddle those, and apparently they don't interfere with fire trucks, for example, or school buses, which was one concern that was articulated. So this is not my area of expertise, but it's just something I wanted to mention because it was indicated as a challenge in earlier conversations. Can we go to the next slide, please? Here's an example of a speed cushion in Hamilton. Again, there's 3 separate bumps, and larger vehicles can straddle the bumps. So the idea with these is that most typical vehicles that would be achieving the higher speeds and causing the concern would have to slow down because some of the wheels would have to pass over the bump, but larger emergency vehicles or school buses wouldn't be affected by the bumps because they could straddle them. Next slide, please. I went online and did a bit of research, and 86% of speed humps in Hamilton are cushion type like that, which to me makes a lot of sense. And there seem to be more than 650 sets installed based on the numbers indicated, and driving around Hamilton a little bit. Next slide, please. So basically what I wanted to do was present some information to the committee and also indicate that everybody on the street is supportive of the idea. So we've got signatures from every house on the street. It's only a short street, so relatively easy to do. Unfortunately, there's those 2 addresses with the boxes, there's actually no address at those numbers. So it is signatures from everybody on the street. And then on the next slide, please. This is a letter of support from the principal of Central Public School. So basically what we wanted to do was sort of present our concerns, some information, and also indicate that there's alignment within the very local area that everybody would really like to see something like this done. I think that's it for slides. So thank you very much for having us here today.
Thank you, David. Are there any questions from the committee? Member Smink?
Thank you for coming tonight, Mr. Bellal. I know that you observe the street all the time, and you have that as a unique advantage over even our staff who might go once or twice. Are there particular times of the days of the week, anything that particularly strikes you as a concern? And are there any other than speeding? Are there any dangerous movements of the drivers?
Nothing that I've observed myself or that I could speak to. Basically, from our perspective, it seems like 90 or 95% of the drivers transit at less than 50 kilometers an hour in a sort of a comfortable, safe manner. But it seems like daily there's cars that go faster, and every couple of days there's cars that go considerably faster. And for such a short street, you can imagine it can be quite impactful to anybody who's on their front lawns, for example. And our concern isn't so much just the act of speeding, but the potential consequences, because it is such a short street. If somebody kicked a ball out in front of a car, would they drive into a house? That kind of a thing. It doesn't take much for things to happen quickly, particularly at a higher rate of speed. And I think that those figures that were summarized from the reference I indicated about, 80% chance of more than 80% chance of fatal injury if the speed limit's 50 kilometers an hour to less than, I can't recall if it was 30% or 20%. To me, it would be fantastic to push towards the lower end. Sorry.
Through you, Mr. Chair. The staff can correct me, but I believe that statistic is if the vehicle is traveling at less than 30 kilometers per hour, as opposed to if the speed limit is 30 kilometers per hour. The other question I had, and I know you had mentioned that you had lived on the street for some time. I did go out this morning just so that I made sure I understood. Amazing Christmas decorations, by the way, everybody on the street. And I have seen in school zones previously that often it's parents dropping off late their students, the children, or maybe picking them up. That can be a problem. Sometimes working with a school, and I'm glad you've reached out to the principal. When the building was Grimsby Secondary School, were there not similar or significant concerns?
Yeah, our concerns have been relatively consistent. We just didn't really know how to advance things. So there was some communication. I think the town has responded. I can't really get into more details in that regard because I haven't heard a lot back, but we just thought it would be a good opportunity to provide some indication that everybody on the street would really be encouraging of a school safety zone. And thank you for the clarification regarding the statistics. It's not my area of specialty. I'm just trying to provide general information as best I can.
Thank you. Councillor Korstanji.
Thank you, through you, Chair. Thank you for coming tonight. Thank you for the delegation. I do participate in a program that runs there in the evening, and I know there's another program that runs after, and a multitude of vehicles come from like 6 o'clock right to probably 9. So I imagine it's not just a school time issue, it is an after hours all the time issue as well, because it is a very busy street, even though it's so short. I think that I fully support safety measures being in place because it doesn't have any school zone sort of safety measures in place, but we still have stuff at the older school, the previous school on Livingston. So I think we need to sort of redirect that. Thank you for bringing this to our attention, and I'm happy that the residents spoke up.
Thank you. Councillor DeVoley.
Thank you. A question to our delegation. I think we're all aware that it used to be Grimsby Secondary School, then it went through a period of dormancy, I will say, and then switched over to being Central School. Could you share with us your observations about the traffic and the speeds when it was in its dormancy period, when it was literally not being used as a school?
I'm sorry, but I can't really speak to that so much because I have a full-time job and typically am away from the street from before 8 o'clock until after 5 o'clock. So I would miss out on a lot of that. Practically, it has been a school for quite some time, but I think the fact that now it's a school with younger children sort of could escalate the value or increase the value in having a school zone. There tends to be a little bit more sort of less controlled behavior or erratic behavior with young kids kicking balls or wandering out into the street from my perspective. And I really don't think that there would be any big downside. At one point when it was a high school, there was a fair bit of frustration regarding people dropping students off right at the front door and blocking the intersection effectively, particularly for people that, frequent the street or, some people, some of my neighbors would have to deal with that almost daily, trying to come home and make sure they went the other way. So there was some frustration around that, but practically, we're all very happy to live where we live. We feel very fortunate to live in Grimsby. We really appreciate the great work that you all do. And a number of our kids go to that school and very much like the school. I haven't noticed any correlation between school events or volume of traffic and the speeding. If anything, when there's school events, the street is effectively narrower because there's a number of cars that line up to drop off and pick up children. Or probably wait to pick up children, perhaps. It's really hard for me to say anything objective about it other than, in my experience, what I've observed has been much more arbitrary. And perhaps it seems more likely when the street is empty from what I've seen, but it's really hard to say anything conclusive about that. I do think that having at least one set of speed cushions would really reduce the likelihood of anybody to go so fast down the street because practically there'd be a big impact when they hit them. But again, it's not my area of expertise, so that's kind of all I can say.
Thank you. So the speed humps cushion speed humps that you mentioned, I work at a school in Hamilton that has those. They're quite common on side streets, especially like this one. And I think an important fact for us to consider is when it went from being a secondary school to being an elementary school, there's a different expectation of the amount of protection that you give to elementary students than there is to what you give to secondary students. So I'll give you an example, because I'm a teacher during the day. There's never an expectation that a school be nut-free in the secondary level, because at that point, kids are old enough to look around and understand the danger, and the kids who are not in that situation, so I've also been a special education teacher, are isolated from places where that might be a danger. In elementary school, on the other hand, there is a protection in place. There are nut-free rules because kids are too young to understand the dangers. So when we went from a secondary at GSS, which I graduated from, I can tell you there was probably a lot more irresponsible driving that happened from the students' perspective back then. But at the same time, when my mom dropped me off at GSS, and I was late for school, she would come in on two wheels. So like I understand your concern. Now, the length of the road, I think, is a big consideration. But questions for staff, because we're going to obviously listen to your delegation, and we have a traffic management plan that we're in the middle of working on now. Has Kidd Avenue been identified as a concern within that?
So maybe I can speak in general terms. So normally when we get a request like this, our staff would go out and set up traffic monitoring devices. From there, we'd review the data and run it through our warrant criteria. So we have a series of criteria that essentially lays out if additional calming measures are warranted. So part of our suggestion to committee will be that you allow staff to bring that information forward to Public Works Committee at a later date with a fulsome explanation of now that we reviewed this information, here's what our warrant criteria says, and here's some recommendations from staff moving forward. In terms of the current warrant criteria or policy, if you want to call it, is being assessed as part of the Transportation Master Plan study, and an updated policy will be coming forward as well. So that's in the works as well. Hopefully that answers your question.
No, definitely. I want to make sure, because if we're working on warrants, and that's coming forward, then I don't know if we want to wait until that's completed to do this, or if we want to deal with this on a case-by-case basis, because there's a danger to, obviously I want to listen to people who have concerns, but there's also a danger in dealing with it on a case-by-case basis, because if we don't have a structure in place that we follow for this kind of thing, then it becomes a situation where we're making a decision based on not based on the criteria that we have, but on the way that we feel. And I don't want it to I feel like, so I'm going to be honest, I feel like there's a problem here, but I don't know that there's a problem here. So does that make sense?
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chair. So again, we appreciate and we sympathize with the residents. We do get these inquiries from time to time. We have established this warrant criteria based on industry practices to ensure that we're taking the emotions out of it and using data to derive our decision making. So in terms of the active policy versus the future policy, and looking to Mike, I think it's far enough along that it's not yet approved, but we can probably look at it in both cases to say under the old case, it does or doesn't warrant, and under the new case, it does or doesn't warrant. Good. Okay. Perfect.
Thank you. That absolutely answers my question.
If I can too, obviously, we'll communicate to the residents as well once we have the report ready, so they can, it becomes their information as well, so they can digest that, and if they wish to attend in the future to speak to the matter, I would look to the clerk if that is possible.
Thank you for your presentation. As I said to you in the email, it's always good to put things on the radar if there's a concern. We don't know because we don't live there. So you coming here is the start of the process. It's not over. It's just starting us out. But we appreciate the information, and we appreciate you bringing your concerns, and you're being very reasonable about it and not hyperbolic in any way. Like all of those things we appreciate as counselors and as a committee, because, no, honestly, because, you could come in here and say, somebody think of the children like from The Simpsons, but, and that's kind of what you're saying, but you're saying in a reasonable manner, saying like, look, these are other solutions that have been put in place, and we appreciate that approach. I'm speaking for me, but I think I can speak for everybody saying that we appreciate that approach. So I have a motion tonight that we've, can I get a mover or seconder to receive the presentation to start off? Oh, did you want to speak, Councilor?
I had a question for Brandon.
Okay, go ahead. Sorry, I thought we were done.
Thank you, through chair. I'm just wondering on time frame if this is going to be sooner rather than later, because it's not a typical street, because it is a school zone. So
Obviously there's a challenge with committee scheduling. I think the next one is probably late January. So realistically, it won't be until the new year. That being said, we do have we have some data collected already, so it's not like we have to wait until to do that collection. So that should help with the process of bringing the report forward. So I would like to say the January committee, but I hate to put a timeline to it, just with all the things that we have going on. But it is important, and we'll make sure it moves along in proper order.
Thanks, Brandon. So I have a motion moved by Member Spink, seconded by Councilor Korstanji. Is that okay? Resolve the delegation from David Belisle, resident of Kidd Avenue, regarding request of school safety zone and traffic calming on Kidd Avenue be received for information, and that the Public Works Committee requests council to direct staff to complete a traffic calming warrant review of Kidd Avenue and report back with results and any recommendations. All in favor? Opposed? That's carried. Thanks again.
Thanks very much.
All right, we have some discussion reports. The first discussion report tonight is DPW 2522, 2025 Stormwater QMS Operational Plan Endorsement. Can I get a mover and seconder to get on the floor for discussion? Moved by Member Murphy, seconded by Councilor DeVoli. Jackson, I think you're on the hot seat tonight.
Thank you. And through the chair, this report presents the town's first stormwater quality management system operational plan for council's review and endorsement. Similar to drinking water, this operational plan is a high-level summary, and it outlines how we manage and maintain the town's stormwater management system. In December of 2023, the Ministry of Environment issued a Consolidated Linear Infrastructure Environmental Compliance Approval, or CLI-ECA, to the town of Grimsby for the stormwater management system. And as a requirement of the CLI-ECA, the town developed and implemented inspection, maintenance, and record-keeping procedures and practices. While many procedures and practices were already part of regular operations, this new system simply formalizes and strengthens them through clear documentation. And going forward, staff will continue to update the plan and associated documents, ensuring the system remains well managed and supports strong asset management practices. Thank you for your time. We're happy to receive comments or answer any questions.
Any questions for Jackson? Come on, somebody's got to ask him some questions. Councilor DeVoli.
I don't have a question. I just wanted to compliment staff on filling in the numeric order of the reports this time.
Well played, Councilor DeVoli. All right, I have a motion moved by Member Murphy, seconded by Councilor DeVoli, that resolve that report DPW 2522, 2025 Stormwater QMS Operational Plan Endorsement dated November 26, 2025 be received. That the committee recommend that council endorse Stormwater QMS Operation Plan that the mayor be authorized to sign the stormwater QMS operation plan, and that the committee recommend that the council endorse the stormwater QMS policy statement as per stormwater QMS operational plan and stormwater QMS policies. I think we need to say stormwater QMS more than that. All in favor? Carried. Second discussion report is DPW 2524, 2024-2025 QMS Drinking Water Quality Management System Management Review. Can I get a mover and seconder to get the report on the floor? Got Member Smink and Councillor Kristanji. Ben.
Thank you, Chair. Through you, hard act to follow. I'll do my best. The report in front of you summarizes the outcomes of the DWQMS Management Review conducted on October 23rd, 2025. In summary, the management review is an opportunity for public works staff to review, assess, and discuss the various elements and inputs into the QMS. At a high level, staff review regulatory compliance, sampling and monitoring activities, the efficiency of process and procedures, operational performance, state of infrastructure, as well as any training or resource requirements. While there was many topics of discussion during the annual review, the most impactful was the identification of the pressures on our environmental services staff, which are related to the vacancies within the department. However, despite the pressures, staff have confidence that the water system and the QMS are operating as they should and are in good condition. The information presented in the report demonstrates a continued commitment to maintaining a strong and effective QMS, ensuring the safety and reliability of the drinking water system. We welcome any discussions or comments on the report. Thank you.
Any questions for Ben? Councillor Howe?
Not sure if Mayor, damn, you've changed.
Got a lot better look.
Nick, to you, probably to the director, a couple of times there's comments about vacancy we in trouble trying to get. Is that right across the board, like for different municipalities, joining municipalities? And if so, why? I mean, isn't it it is a somewhat rewarding career, as I understand it? But it's been, I think, 3 years now that we've seen the vacancy issue.
Yeah, so through you, Mr. Chair, maybe I'll start and I'll hand it off to Thomas if he wants to elaborate. Yes, we've had a challenge in bringing on operators. The challenge is we're unable to attract a full-time, fully licensed operators. So we've had to pivot a bit to bringing in junior operators or operators in training to kind of fill the gaps while we the idea being that we're taking those junior people and training them up in-house, and hopefully we can keep them long-term and they become full operators. I don't know if anything else to add on that.
Yeah, so through you, Chair. So yes, it has been a multi-year issue with us right now, but as Brandon said, we are kind of pivoting and changing strategies, and it's not just the town of Grimsby. I would say that's having sort of issues in hiring operators. Like most small municipalities are having issues just because of the competition out there for those positions. The operator position really became important post Walkerton 2000. So we're now 25 years after that. So we're having there's a huge loss of talent through attrition, through retirements happening sort of across the province. So those people that are licensed are able to pick and choose where they want to go right now. We are working with the HR department here, with everybody. So we are competitive. We're competitive in pricing. We are thinking of other ways of attracting. It's just the nature of the market right now. So we are having to rethink how we're doing it. And we're not the only ones that are doing that as well. So there are lots of, as Brandon said, operator in training. So younger people or just someone right out of school with all the training and background, they just don't have the experience yet. So we're bringing in some of those positions to backfill operators, to get them fully licensed, which takes approximately a year of time of experience to acquire that license. So we're kind of going about it that way, which is what a lot of other municipalities are doing as well. And as Brandon said, we're hopeful that we'll be able to, train in-house and retain some of those staff here. But I mean, hopefully that answers your questions.
the one good thing about bringing them in and then training them is they learn how to do it right.
That's giving Thomas a lot of credit. Sorry. Any other questions? I think the concern is always that, you know, we're bringing people in and training them, and then they could get scooped by other municipalities, right? It's a concern that we've faced for years. We're surrounded by larger municipalities that traditionally have been able to offer more lucrative jobs. So we have to, I'm glad that we're being competitive in the salary perspective. I think also we have to create an environment where people want to work, which I think you guys are doing a great job of doing. That environment is an important part, because I think as you get older, you start to realize that a few $1,000s is not worth your sanity. And so hopefully we're creating that environment where people want to work. We're training people internally. Lots of positives happening there. It's happened in firefighting where we had a concern where we were training firefighters that then went out and became full-time firefighters in other places and could no longer be firefighters in Grimsby. It's something that, it's the reality of our market, unfortunately. So hopefully we are creating that environment. I think you are creating that environment where people want to stay. So I have a motion moved by Member Smith. Oh, did you have another question, Councillor Foley? So go ahead.
My question is to our staff, and I know you've shared this with us in prior years, but it is still an interesting question and interesting to hear your answer about what types of complaints you actually get from our residents about the quality, the taste, the smell, and so on of our water.
Thank you. Through you, Chair. I think this has been a topic of discussion for a few reports now, and I think the last time we highlighted it was at the infrastructure review earlier this year. And just to maybe highlight a comment made by our chair at that time about, maybe our level of service or what our KPIs are, that, we want to receive less than 10 water quality complaints annually. And, to be able to set that in 2024, we received exactly 10 is a pretty high bar for our staff. And maybe to answer your question, that we are still receiving, those types of calls related to taste, odor, or smell. And a lot of those times, those curiosities or those complaints are from, residents, new residents or new occupants to buildings in town that come from municipalities with other treatment methods. Again, being in a system that is chlorinated, you do get a sense of a different smell if you're coming from, a municipality like Toronto or Hamilton, for instance. So again, I just wanted to again summarize that we have a pretty strong level of service, and we have we'll call it a minimal number of complaints annually, and how they're addressed is done on an ad hoc basis. But again, we are finding that, a lot of the times those complaints are driven by residents or otherwise that are coming from different municipalities.
Okay, I have a motion moved by moved by Member Spink, seconded by Councillor Cristangi. Resolved that report DPW 2524, 2024-25 drinking water QMS management review dated November 26, 2025 be received for information. Any further questions or comments? All in favor? That's carried. Third discussion report is DPW 2525. That's 2025 risk assessment review. Can I get a mover and seconder to get it on the floor for discussion, please? Councillor Howe and Councillor Cristangi. Jackson, please go ahead.
Thank you, and through you, the chair. This report provides the annual review of the town's drinking water quality management system risk assessment as required under the DWQMS. The assessment examines potential hazards to the drinking water system. It evaluates their likelihood and impact and confirms appropriate control measures are in place. This year's 2025 review found that existing risk scores remain appropriate, with only minor updates needed to the risk assessment matrix. As a result of an audit finding, the town completed the risk assessment review in June 2025, and then we reviewed the results of the risk assessment in October to allow for a more functional process. Detailed results remain confidential due to the sensitivity of the information, but can be provided to council upon request. The review also prompted discussions regarding future infrastructure improvements and system modernization, with any financial considerations to be addressed through future budget processes. And in summary, the town continues to meet the DWQMS requirements and remains committed to ensuring the safe and reliable delivery of drinking water to the community. Thank you for your time. We're happy to receive comments or answer any questions.
Any questions or comments for Jackson? It's getting off easy tonight. So I have a resolution. It was moved by Councillor Howe, seconded by Councillor Korstanji. Resolved that DPW 2024 DQMS risk assessment dated November 26, 2025 be received for information. All in favor? That's carried. The fourth discussion report is DPW 2526. That's 2025 roads QMS operation plan endorsement. Can I get a mover and seconder to get on the floor for discussion? Moved by Councillor Howe, seconded by Councillor DeVoli. Jackson, are these guys making you do everything tonight or what?
Well, hopefully you guys aren't getting sick of me yet. Yeah. Through you, the chair, this report provides the annual review and endorsement of the town's roads quality management system, operational plan and policy. As internally required, both the operational plan and policy must be reviewed and endorsed by staff and council. This operational plan is a high-level summary. It outlines how we manage and maintain the town's transportation network. The accompanying policy acts as our mission statement and commitment to the management of the transportation network. This year's review identified only minor updates, primarily to the organizational structure and the system infrastructure descriptions. The policy itself remained unchanged. Audit costs remain consistent with previous years, and there are no additional fees regarding system licensing or permits. So in summary, the review confirms that our roads QMS continues to function effectively and meet our internal requirements. Thank you for your time. We're happy to receive comments or answer any questions.
Member Spink?
Through you, Mr. Chair. I'm trying to determine if the discussion that we had earlier this year, which talked about long-term infrastructure needs and what an acceptable standard was for roads, if that was something that needed to be incorporated into the roads QMS system.
Is that Ben?
Yep, sorry, through you, Chair. Just to answer the Member Smig's comments or question, I do think there's an opportunity as we continue to build out and formalize the roads QMS along with the stormwater, wastewater, and improve the drinking water to draw in aspects of the 2025 asset management plan and those asset management plan reviews moving forward. So I think, again, where our asset management plan kind of shines is that it applies new methods for key metrics and OFIs opportunities for opportunities for improvement. So whereas our roads QMS infrastructure review has previously looked at kind of our levels of service from an operational lens, the management or the asset management plan looks at it from operational and engineering. So I think there's a good opportunity as we move forward and formalize these two documents for them to speak hand in hand. And I hope that answers your question.
Thank you. Councillor Howe.
Thank you, through you, Chair. Probably to the Director, Brandon or Thomas. With climate change, and as much as some people are trying to say it's not an issue and we don't need to worry about it anymore, I think we can all, at least I can say for myself and most observers, that things are a lot different than they are. And if anything is affected as much, I think it's probably the roads when it comes down to it, and then the climate action. But are we incorporating any of that kind of stuff in the background into our plans? And maybe I'm a little premature. Maybe it could have been on the winter control work, but You know, does it come into play for us?
Through your chair. So yes, it does come into play. We definitely are continually reviewing changes that are coming, and part of that comes with things that Marv and the team are doing when we're doing capital projects and rebuilding roads, looking at new technologies and new ways and new materials. From the operating side of things, and we will review some of that later this evening with the winter control, but we're always changing what our responses are. We're always tracking, I mean, with more freeze-thaw cycle as opposed to deep freezes, we do see increases of cracking and potholes and things coming up. So all of that plays into or is a part of our infrastructure programs, our maintenance programs. And as we just sort of mentioned, this program is a direct feed into the asset management plan as an input for decision-making on how we would be replacing those assets. So we take that information in, and then the engineering side of it uses a lot of that for its decision-making on will we be using new technologies, new techniques, or just reviewing how we are doing things. Hopefully that kind of answers it.
Any other questions? So the only question that I had was, sorry, I had to scroll up. The QMS, is this our third year of this? How many years have we been doing the roads QMS operation? Is it that long?
Through Chair, it's been a long time, but I guess for this current term of council, it's been 3 years of bringing forward the operational plan for endorsement and approval, but it predates the council by a number of years, and it continues to be built out on an annual basis as new best practices are either kind of presented by the industry or by the province.
Okay, so are there, how do I want to ask this question? Does the plan affect service levels and, so how do we use the QMS plan? You talked about asset management. How do we use the QMS plan to, how does it get adopted, I guess, is the question. I want to simplify it for people. If you could just, in a paragraph, teach me like I'm a 5-year-old.
Through you, Chair. So effectively, the plan sets our service levels from an operational standpoint. So it sets our targets for the repairs we do, the inspections we complete, the maintenance cycles we do on everything. So basically it is our levels of service that have been set, and then annually we're reporting back on how did we do as a municipality in meeting those levels of service. So those levels of service can change, and again, with now working in line with the asset management plan, that is going to start steering how those levels of service are set, because obviously, we can increase them, but that comes with some financial requirements, and if we decrease them, that could have less of a burden. So effectively, that's what this plan is. It is our set levels of service, or as Ben said, our operational performance indicator, so just our targets that we are trying to hit, and this report is basically reflecting on how well did we do in this past year of meeting those targets. Now, those targets are either established through best practice and industry standards, or some of them have been set higher than that. For the most part in Grimsby, that's what we've done. We've set some pretty lofty goals, and with the support of council, we've been able to hit our targets for the last 3 years and the many years before that. So hopefully that answers your question.
That's perfect. It was more than a paragraph, but it was perfect. It's just, I know that I say this all the time, but I think the educational part of what we do here is very important, and it's important for people to understand why we do these things. So you explaining it in that manner really, I know that there's not a lot of people watching, but even for us to be able to explain it to other people in a simplified way that you just gave us is really important. So thanks for that. I appreciate it. So I have a motion moved by Councillor Howe, seconded by Councillor Devoli. Resolve that report DPW 2526, 2025 Roads QMS Operation Plan endorsement dated November 26, 2025 be received for information. That the committee recommend the council endorse the current revision of the Roads QMS Operation Plan. that the mayor be authorized to sign the current revisions of the roads QMS operation plan, and that the committee recommend that council re-endorse the existing roads QMS policy statement. All in favor? That's carried. Thank you. Fifth discussion report is DPW 2527, 2025-26 salt management plan endorsement. Can I get a mover and seconder to get that on the floor for discussion, please? Got Member Murphy, seconded by Councillor DeVoli. Ben?
Thank you, and through you, Chair. The Salt Management Plan is an initiative to ensure the effective and sustainable use of road salts during the winter months, minimizing environmental impact while maximizing public safety. The plan and associated documents provided in the appendices outline the best practices for salt application, monitoring and storage, as well as the town's current practices and procedures. It also reflects the current compliance with a lot of those best practices. The salt management plan was reviewed and confirmed to be current, and while no direct changes were made, the review process did highlight several areas for informal discussion and consideration. To highlight, this included ongoing staff training, plow and patrol route optimization, and documented record control procedures. In closing, the plan outlines steps and strategies to maintain safe winter roads while managing salt and cost. To that end, we welcome any comments or discussion. Thank you.
Councillor DeVoli and then Councillor Howe.
Thank you. Two questions, and I'll do them separately if I could. My first one has to do with Appendix B and item within that 2.3. I don't know if it's a typing error, and if it's not, then this is my question. So it talks about pre-wetting and anti-icing equipment, and it says pre-wetting of materials helps to keep the material on the roadway by reducing bounce, et cetera. It also says in the next column that we have an optimum number of spreaders that have onboard pre-wetting capabilities, not wetting. And then the next column, column 4, says the town does not pre-wet materials. So I'm confused. It sounds like it's a good policy to have. It's a good thing to do. We have the capability, but we're not doing it. Could you just expand upon that?
Sure, maybe just a point of clarification through you, the Chair. Like column, the column 3, we'll call it, is the best practice. And then the column 4 is the current situation. So the best practice is to have equipment which is capable of pre-wetting materials. Our current situation or the current practice in town is that we do not have pre-wetting, or we do not complete pre-wetting.
So I guess the ancillary question to that is, are we considering that going forward in the future?
Through you, Chair. It's something that could be considered. Again, the equipment required for adding that feature to our plow trucks is obviously, there's a cost involved in that. There's also a lot of debate, let's say, in the market right now about the actual effectiveness of pre-wetting in some circumstances, as well as pre-wetting can also have an impact on the delivery of the product out of the truck. So if you have a wet material, it can clog up in the chute coming out as opposed to dry material. So there is definitely an upside in certain situations, but there's also a downside, and just the town has to date just had the stance where we have not had that technology or that feature added to our trucks. So it's just, that's how we've operated. We've had, I think, very good results without having that on the trucks currently. So I think as for now, that the plan is to sort of just stay the course that way.
Then would it be good to, under one of these asterisks, to note that or something? Because my first impression when reading this report is that, column 2, that pre-wetting, is a really good thing to have. And then column 3 says, an optimum, that's the ideal. And then column 4 says we don't do it. Maybe you might want to consider an asterisk to it as to why we're not doing it, so that, and I'm thinking of it from a risk perspective, because, something happens, somebody starts a lawsuit that says, well, look, you said pre-wetting would be really useful, and then you said you don't do it. Why is that, right? So, to at least illustrate that we made that conscious decision for these, and these reasons, right? My second question, and and I forget who mentioned it, but somebody mentioned in the last few moments, there's a cost to acquiring salts, and maybe you could just give us a general overview of pricing trends with salt and sand in the last few years, and the amount of usage we have used. Are the weather conditions changing how much you find yourself buying, or the mix of what you're buying? If we overbuy, we end up storing them. There's a cost to it. Is there a degradation of the product when that happens? As much as you can, expand upon that.
Through you, Chair. So yes, winter control is not free, and a part of that is definitely purchasing of salt. As far as the town's usage of salt, I mean, it's a bit of an ebb and a flow. It goes up and down depending upon the winter season, obviously. We have seen a bit of an upward trend, and I think a part of that just does have to do with sort of our changing weather conditions. We don't get deep freezes that sit for a long time. We kind of get a lot of freeze thaw. With that freeze thaw comes more frequent probability of ice forming on the roadway. You get any snow accumulated melting during the day, freezing overnight. So if it stays cold, you can clean up ice and get rid of it. If it keeps melting and rethawing, you have to keep going and reapplying new material to melt it again, right? So we have seen a marginal increase over the last 2 or 3 years, but again, not like a doubling or anything of that nature. And, hopefully the trend will not continue upwards in that. The unused material. So generally speaking, we're pretty proactive at trying to maintain a good supply within our salt dome. And part of that does include leaving some for any potential early season weather events that we have. So we don't like to go right empty, because it's, there's always the likelihood of something happening in October or early in November like we had this year. So we do keep a small stock within our salt dome. It is protected. There's no degradation of the material when it's stored within. We are a part of a collective purchasing group in the Niagara region for the sodium chloride that we use. So it's basically a regional price that we've committed to a certain amount with the other municipalities and other users. So we get favorable pricing for that and kind of guaranteed delivery. We're pretty lucky in that regard. Was there another question as well? I don't know if that was...
That was good, thank you. Just as a follow-up to that, because of course, the tariffs have been in the news so much, and of course, through finance, one of the recommendations was that council endorsed was a Buy Canadian policy. So maybe you could just expand upon where we get our salt from and how it gets to us.
Through you, Chair. I believe our vendor is a Canadian vendor. I don't know, are we allowed to talk about that? So we currently purchase through Cargill, Canada, and I don't know where it is shipped from specifically, but I believe there's a large stockpile in the Hamilton area where most of it comes from. I think most of the salt is mined in Ontario anyway, is it not? Yes. So there hasn't been any tariff implications for us on that end of things, and it is a local supplier, as local as it can be.
Councillor Howe.
Yeah. How many tons of salt did we go through last year? That's how, dummies like me can kind of relate to something. We can come up with all kinds of terms and whatnot, but
I want to know it translated into how many bags, like the ones I have in my garage, did we go through last year?
Through you to the chair, we do have an upcoming RQMS infrastructure and management review. So our salt usage is typically reviewed at that meeting. You'll subsequently be getting a report coming in January with those findings. To the chair's comment, maybe we can highlight it in a little infographic with what that salt usage looks like in terms of bags, as terms of perspective. So I'd respectively like to ask that we wait until the presentation comes in January.
Any further questions or comments? Okay, seeing none, I have a motion moved by Member Murphy, seconded by Councillor DeVoli. Resolved that report DPW 2527, 2025-26 Salt Management Plan endorsement dated November 26, 2025 be received. That the committee recommend that council re-endorse the current revision of Salt Management Plan, and that the committee recommend that council endorse the updated version of the Salt Management Plan activities matrix. All in favor? That's carried. Sixth and final discussion report is DPW 2528, 2025-26 Winter Control Manual endorsement. Can I get a mover and seconder to get it on the floor for discussion, please? Councillor Kristanji and Councillor Howe. And Ben, I think this is you again.
Thank you, through the chair. I won't be offended if there's any head bobs, but we are on the sixth and final. On the floor this evening is the Town of Grimsby's Winter Control Manual, which is being brought forward for endorsement. In summary, the Winter Control Manual is a collection of documents used by the Public Works Department during winter months and speaks to the level of service and maintenance of roadways and associated infrastructure. During the annual exercise of updating these documents, staff made several updates. This included updating our winter patrol route to be representative of the town's road network, updates to the maps to provide better clarity and uniformity, and updates to our equipment and mobilization lists. In closing, the Winter Control Manual reflects the town's commitment to safe roads, efficient operations, and responsible use of resources throughout the winter season. We welcome any discussion or comments on the report. Thank you.
Councillor Howe?
Through you, Chair. Any thought or any word coming out of the region as to, are they going to maintain service levels? Are they going to, they've got a lot of heat coming down, but there's got to be some type of indication coming out of them as to what they're going to do. Can status quo? Are they going to cut back on us a little bit? They're going to take 10 minutes add on to on the mountain, for instance, you know, on the routes. I think that's the one that I'm worried about.
Through your chair, we haven't heard any communication from the region that they're reducing any of their levels of service from their standard. If we do hear that down the road, then maybe we could report back to the committee on that at the time. But as of now, no, we haven't heard that.
I've got a couple of questions. So one is a comment. I think that it's important for people to understand why decisions are made as far as which roads get done first. So if we can use our social media to get that information out there proactively, like before the storms really start to happen, so people understand why their side road is plowed after the main roads. While it seems logical, sometimes we think from our own perspective, not from a global perspective sometimes, you know, and so getting that information out there, I think, would be great. The question that I had for you is, has there been any thought given, and probably the answer is no, to letting people know where the snowplow is, as far as GPS? There are municipalities that do that, where you can track it, you know, this is where it is, this is where it's going next. I don't know if it's too expensive to do, if it's kind of a privacy issue or anything like that, but has any thought been given to that kind of information being out there? People like to know when Santa's coming, you know, with the radar, so.
Through your chair, so I guess just to your first comment, just regarding, you know, the information going out about, I guess, basically how we do the operations. So we are working with the communications team here about getting some of that information out, and that's kind of a part of a larger communication strategy, but we are working, you know, currently right now with them about what our winter messaging would look like. I'm not sure if we're leaning towards every storm saying, hey, it's snowing out, we're going to be plowing, or if we're just going to hope that people understand that when it snows, we're going to be plowing, but we are going to try and put some more information out there so that they can understand how we do the operations maybe. So I think that is very valuable, and I think that's maybe something that we have been, you know, lacking right now. As far as where's my plow, I'm not sure if that's something that we're going to be looking at doing. The technology does exist. We do currently track all of our equipment right now, but it's more for internal reasons. The the only, there's an upside to it where people can know where it is, but there's also the downside where you're inviting a lot more questions and comments and complaints coming in. That all needs to be managed as well. So it's just another stream of input that we would have to deal with. I think, I would tend to think focusing on that educating and then people understanding the why and the how, and hopefully that teaches them the when the plow will be coming as well, would maybe be preferential, but it's something that, could be looked at down the road.
Yeah, good points, for sure. Explaining to people that staff have to take a 15-minute break and that's why the vehicle is parked for 15 minutes, or people also get a meal, is probably something that you don't want to have a discussion about, so that's valid. So I have a motion moved by Councillor Korstanji, seconded by Councillor Howe. Resolved that DPW 2528, 2025-26 Winter Control Manual endorsement dated November 26, 2025 be received, and that the committee recommend the council endorse the current revision of the Winter Control Manual. All in favor? That's carried. We have correspondence that Brandon gave the Grimsby Downtown Business Improvement Area for the annual general meeting on November 12th, titled DPW 2529 Downtown Reimagined Update, Grimsby Downtown BIA AGM. Brandon, were you going to speak to that?
Sure, I'd be happy to, Mr. Chair. So, the BIA had their annual general meeting on November 12th. So we wanted to provide a bit of an update to them and as well as invite them to a work engagement session that we have coming up on December 4th. So at a high level, I think we've spoken about it at the last couple of committee meetings where we've reached the 60% milestone on our drawing design package. And it includes both the underground works, the water main, the sewers, and the above ground works, the roads. We're still looking at beginning construction in early next year, getting out to tender prior to that, but we're providing a lot more detail to the business owners on December 4th. While technically it's not an open public meeting, like the focus is towards the BIA at this meeting, we will be providing additional public engagements as we move forward to the construction project, but I would encourage members of council, if they are available, to come and join us and provide some support.
I'm going to come before work. I can only stay until a certain amount of time, but I'm definitely going to be there. Thank you. That's December 4th between 8 and 10 a.m. at the Carnegie Commons? That's okay. So for those who can make it, try and make it out. Did the BIA express any concerns related to what the feedback that you gave them?
Yes, through you, Mr. Chair. We did receive a follow-up letter from the BAA following the AGM with some points of questions and asked for a request for clarity. So I don't have those at hand, but a lot of the questions that came are things that we are considering or have considered, and our focus on December 4th will be to answer some of those questions. So yes, they have expressed some concerns and expect that some of those questions will be answered on December 4th, and I'm sure new questions will be raised. So,
do you still think the timelines are feasible based on what you know now? Because it seems I'm not staff, but for me, 60% at this point in the process seems, unless it's like when you update Windows and it goes like 67 and then straight to 100, then that would make me feel more comfortable. But 60% still feels like there's a long way to go, almost halfway to go in a very short period of time. And we're getting closer and closer to the deadline from our grant perspective. So I guess just if you want to speak to that.
Yeah, through you, Mr. Chair. So, you're right. The 60% sounds like, we're only halfway there, but we've been assured by the consultant the milestone from 60 to 90 and 100 is a quicker jump. So we will be providing a lot more detail in terms of where we're at with the current schedule and explaining how we're proposing to stage the work and how we're proposing to manage traffic and things like that on December 4th. So I'm hoping that the overall scope and scale and schedule and all that will become more clear at that time.
And last thing, is there anything that we need to do as a town to support the BIA? Because you talked about you giving them, sort of how things are going to work, and we've talked about different ideas like signage and things like that. Is there anything else that we need from a council perspective? We have already passed the budget, but I mean, is there anything that you need financially to make all of this work? Because we want to make sure that those businesses maintain, or stay busy during the time that we close off the road.
Very good question, and that's one of the questions we're going to be asking the BAA as well, is like, hey, here's what we thought of, here's our approach. We've been in good, collaboration with the BAA and the Chamber of Commerce through the last year or so. We meet with them on a bi-weekly basis to keep them in the loop on things. To date, we haven't been able to share a ton because a ton hasn't come forward, but now that we've reached this milestone, we feel like we're in a position to start putting the pictures on the page that we can show you, hey, here's what we're doing. So I'm actually pretty excited to have that meeting and be able to show finally, kind of here's how things are coming along. So
That's great news. Thanks, Brandon. So can I get a mover and seconder to receive the correspondence? Councillor DeVoley, Councillor Howe, moved by Councillor DeVoley, seconded by Councillor Howe. Resolved that the correspondence titled DPW 2529 Downtown Reimagined Update Grimsby Downtown BIA AGM dated November 6, 2025 be received for information. All in favor? Opposed? That's carried. Is there any other business pertaining to the committee? Seeing none, the next meeting of the Public Works Committee is scheduled for Wednesday, January 20. Oh, yeah, go ahead, Member Murphy.
There we go. I was kind of surprised by the presentation because it's my perception Kidd Avenue at its north end has a stoplight and its south end has a high school. So to me, I just want to encourage some measurement on that street because it's never struck me, and I live in the neighborhood like Tom does, et cetera, as any kind of a speedway. As a matter of fact, it's got a left turn at the top of it. So it'd be interesting to know time of day and some of the average speeds so that we could have a look at it. And then you'd have information to get back to them, and then maybe some of their feeling is perception rather than reality.
And that's a valid point, and that's quite often what happens, what we see visually and what actually the numbers actually show. But you can't tell people how to feel at the same time. And let's whatever decision we make it based on the data and what the data tells us, because then we can defend that decision very easily. So, right. Agreed.
Thank you.
Next meeting's January 28th, 2025 at 6:30 p.m. Meeting's adjourned. Everybody have a great night. 2026. That's Noah's fault. He wrote 2025.